Welcome back, everybody, to the Nerd Course 4 for 4 interview series, where I try to make up 4 questions and hopefully get 4 answers to people on production teams from just people that reach out or the festivals that we cover. And today we are covering VIFF 2022. I believe the festival started today. Or at least it opened officially for the public today, and it'll be going up until October 9th, I believe. Yeah, today we have Sophie Jarvis and Alicia Eisen.
That was a good try. It was Eisen.
Eisen. Okay. I didn't want to. I see. That's my problem. I always doubt myself with those things.
No
But
problem.
but I'm glad you guys can make it. How are you guys today?
Wonderful.
Very
Yeah.
good. Yeah, happy to be
How's
here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys can make it. I know there was like trouble setting up and anything, but I know life happens. Like hopefully both of you guys are fine. And I don't remember which one was the one with the sickness and which one was moving.
Yeah.
Someone got like a stomach bug or something, but I'm glad you guys are in better shape now. Yeah, so today we'll be talking about their co-directed film Seb Spider. Would you guys like to give us some synopsis about that?
Go for it, Alicia.
I was waiting for you to go for it. Yeah. So our film is called Deb Spider. It's a stop motion animated film, and it's a short film about a superstitious homebody who finds herself with an uninvited guest.
Mm. Yeah, and then for the people that read the synopsis, if you got a chance, it does deal with arachnophobia. So if you're afraid a spider is not the one for you, but it's a great stop motion piece. Very short. I was surprised that it was so short. I thought it would been longer, but I imagine I'm not too familiar with stop motion, but I do know it takes a while to just get a minute. So I don't know how long you guys took for that. How was that whole ordeal?
It did take a long time to get a minute. You are correct.
I did my
You're
best
not
guess.
wrong. Yeah, so we started the film together. We started developing it together based off of a script that Sophie had originally written in maybe 2016. We probably first started talking about it. And then we approached the National Film Board of Canada with it in 2017, 2018. And then we started working on it in 2019. We went into production. And then the pandemic came along and we shut down for about 8 months, went on hiatus. And then we just finished the film in, I'd say June 2022.
We finished animating in April, and then we were in post-production through till about the end of July, I think. We did our post-production in Montreal. So post is a lot shorter than production usually.
Yeah, I would imagine. But wow, I was expecting maybe like a year, maybe 2, but I wasn't expecting it all the way back to 2015, because that is a while ago. That is wow.
Well, just to be clear, there was a lot of development that led up to it. So I'd say that the animating portion, Alicia's the animator on it, and an extremely talented and very experienced stop motion animator. So it was really cool for me, who doesn't have a background in stop motion, to work with Alicia. But animation on this 10-minute film took about 1 year. I think we started animating in April of 2021, and we finished animating in April 2022. And so all the production that happened before that in 2019 through till then was actually fabrication. So we had an incredible team of fabricators in Vancouver. We usually had about 4 people at a time working on the film. They're making the puppets, they're building the sets, they're building the props, and it's a very mathematical process. There's a ratio you have to hit to make sure it doesn't look like a dollhouse and it feels like its own world. So for me, that was quite a new thing, because I usually come from a live action background. But just the visual art craft of making a stop motion film is such just an incredible thing to witness and be part of. And I felt really fortunate that we had the support to do so on such a big scale, because that kind of time, it adds up. And we were really lucky that we were able to make it where people were able to get paid for the work that they were doing, and we were also able to too. So it's cool to see how a niche art form like this can have the kind of support it did for this project with the National Film Board.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, now that you're bringing it up, I wanted to ask. So, for the people that don't know you or haven't researched you, I did a little digging and found out you, Sophie, are more of the live action, and you, Alicia, are more stop motion. Even working with like Adult Swim on Robot Chicken, and I believe with a company that works with Disney, if I'm not mistaken, or somewhere around there. Yeah, and I wanted to ask, did you guys for the project just meet all of a sudden? Because not only you, Sophie, we talked about this before I actually hit record, but you have a live action film coming to VIFF as well, Until Branches Bend. But hopefully I'll get to interview you about that in a future day. I'll ask the PR department what's up. But I wanted to ask you guys, so we worked on it up in development 2015. Did you guys know each other before then, or did you guys like come up and like just met each other and worked on this project like same year or something?
Well, Alicia and I met in 2015, and I think that when I wrote this script, both of us were between projects at the time and had struck up a new friendship. And I personally was very interested in stop motion animation and just the opportunities that it provides for telling stories in a different visual way. There's a lot of limitations with live action, I found, and it was, when you have budget limitations and all that too, there's something about stop motion that seemed to, I was just really interested. And also just the tactile quality. I think that everyone who watches stop motion has a similar feeling of wanting to know how it's done.
Yeah.
And so I would say that the script was sort of born out of this new friendship with Alicia, where I was inspired by her and the work that she was doing. And so I wrote this, and we sort of put it away for a couple of years. It was something that lived, but we weren't really pursuing it at the time. And then we realized we wanted to work together on a full stop motion project. And so that's when we dusted the script off and actually started having conversations with the NFB to see if it could happen. So
got you.
The friendship blossomed around the same time that the script came to be.
Okay, got you. Yeah, because I realized once I found out you guys were basically on two branches of filmmaking. I was just like, oh, how does that happen? I know you talked about briefly like your first experiences working here. Did you have any trouble like switching between the live action portion of directing to the stop motion? Because I don't know if you, Alicia, want to get into how directing goes in that field, but for you, Sophie, how was it? Was it challenging or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that directing is a really interesting job because it's hard to describe what you do to people who don't understand film, right? Like,
yeah.
Family members and
of course, yeah,
and people from high school. But I think that there is a huge difference in terms of what the production looks like between live action and stop motion. And with stop motion, it's this incredible visual art project, and you're not working with actors, and you're kind of reverse engineering. So with a live action film, it's more linear. You have a script, you hire the people, you cast the roles, you film the film with your shot list or whatever, however you work. But in a conventional sense, that's how you do it. With stop motion, I think what really tripped me up was you kind of make the movie before you make the movie. Like, we had the script, and it had to be unbelievably detailed, no room for nuance. You had to have every story beat, every tiny detail put in, so that your storyboard artist can then board out the entire film. And that's when the storyboards are what builds your animatic, which is, depending on sorry about the cat.
You're fine.
Depending on the scale of the project, the storyboards are very, very detailed, because when you make your animatic, that's what you edit down to figure out exactly what you're going to be having to make the stop motion film. So it's essentially a blueprint. So you pretty much write storyboard and edit your film before you even make the film, which for me was kind of, it was just really intense for me. I'm someone who really loves to like dig in and see what other options there are, and maybe there was a take here that worked, and I love to find the film in an edit. And with the stop motion, you don't really have that option because you really get what you get. You know what I mean? You're filming something, you're maybe getting 2 or 3 seconds a day. So it's not like you have the option to do multiple takes or to roll longer or shorter on a take. Well, you can roll shorter, but like you can't, you're working with material that's predetermined. So I'd say for me, that was the biggest shift in my thinking. And that's not to say that Alicia and I didn't tear it up in the edit room as well, because we certainly did. But it was it required a lot more conviction in our plan from an earlier stage than I'm used to in live action.
Gotcha.
And maybe Alicia wants to speak a bit to that type of collaboration, and also, you know, directing stop motion and your own experience coming from an animation, like animating background, to kind of grassroots making your own work as well.
Yeah, because I mean, I checked out your website, which I loved your reel, by the way. And you've always seemed to be into stop motion, if I'm not mistaken, right? I don't know, since like being a kid or anything, I don't think that was a part of your bio, but for the majority of it, it seems all of your films have been stop motion.
Yes. Yeah, I love stop motion. Yeah, I used to want to be a sculptor when I was a kid.
Okay.
So that sort of manifested in me wanting to do practical effects for film. And or working in a puppets department in stop motion or something like that, because I just love sculpting and working with my hands. And I ended up getting a job at a stop motion studio as an animator after I graduated college. And I thought I would just work in their puppet department after my animation contract. And I did do that. I asked to be moved to the puppet department. And after a week, I was like, this is so boring. I was like, oh, actually, I love animating. It's so, you're just creating magic on the spot. Like you're literally holding something that's not alive, and you create a relationship as an animator with the puppets that you are working with. Anyway, and so it's, you know, sitting in a puppet department and sanding heads feels less productive after having animated. But yeah, so I worked as a stop motion animator for a very long time before I started making my own work. And then when I started making my own work, there was no question. I love stop motion. It's the most magical medium there is, and it combines everything that I love, because with stop motion, you can combine everything that you love, no matter what kind of artist or filmmaker you are. You can physically bring those elements in, even working with humans if you want to, for like a pixelation technique or something. But yeah, I love it.
So glad to hear that. That's interesting, working from a sculptor and then switching over. But yeah, so was it hard working with Sophie? I don't know if there was drama. No, I'm kidding. That's not a question.
Oh, I can answer that.
Wow.
I mean, it was those were the best days of my life.
Yeah.
To work together. We just working with Sophie, you know, I've made definitely my own films before having the opportunity for Sophie and I to work together, and I learned so much making those films. But working with Sophie, who comes from that live action background, I would tell her all the time, like, I learned so much working with her, because she had this totally fresh perspective, totally unburdened by years of trial and error, or assuming something wouldn't work or couldn't work because it hadn't on something else. Sophie would suggest things that I wouldn't even consider imagining, because I was so attuned to problem solving in a very specific way. And our film is so much better because she saw opportunities that we just wouldn't have gotten there on our own, but together we make a really incredible team. And, you know, we both love challenging anything.
Yeah.
And we love challenging it together, and we love figuring that stuff out together. So, so it was just such a wonderful experience for
It
both of
sounds
us.
like
I'm gonna
yeah.
speak. I'm gonna speak for you, Sophie, because I know we had such a good time.
I feel the same. It was a treasure.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys bonded over the years that you worked on this project, and that's great to see. So that's one thing I like about creating is not only you're creating your work, right, but people on set, you're creating that friendship, you're creating it's outside of business connections, right? You're actually connecting with people that you work, because you have to trust them. You got to put a lot of trust on who you have on your crew, on your production crew, and it just works for the better. So I'm really glad you guys just bonded and it came for the better and it became one of your best memories. But I wanted to ask, so one of my questions that I had more on the film, so we know sometimes creators kind of either they decide to make stuff to bring out important topics, important problems that are happening in the world, important lessons. And sometimes some creators also just want to do things because they think they're fun. They just wanted to create it, right? And I'm not sure if you guys plan any like specific lesson or anything and a deeper meaning in the short. But for me, while I was watching it by the end, I was kind of thinking it's like a metaphor in a way of saying like our Seb and the spiders kind of like some problem that we are afraid to tackle, or just the essence of what life is. It's frightening and stuff, and how like superstition grows to stop you from attacking it or getting through that task. And when we ignore it, we ultimately leave it to grow and get bigger, right? Sometimes allowing it to even get to the extent that it did. By the end of it, for the people that have watched it, it grew basically to the size of that Harry Potter spider that we see in one of the movies. So that's what I was getting at, of like, it's kind of a telling of, if we leave things that we're afraid of or kind of just tackling throughout life to snowball into a bigger issue, we'll end up kind of falling into the web of issues that it'll bring up in the future. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Would you say that I'm near a good sense of topic or lesson, or would you just say I'm overthinking it into?
No, I mean, the best part about making a film is to hear what people take away from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so exciting for me to know that you watched it and it left you with such a wonderful message.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think that while we were making the film, it's easy to overthink things while you're making it, and sometimes I feel like you need to follow your instincts. I'm not saying that you're overthinking things. I just think
No.
I'm speaking
You're completely fine.
When you're stuck with something for so long, it spirals a bit.
Yeah.
We never wanted to like choke anyone with the message with this film.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in some ways it's a bit of a fable. There's a bit of a fantastical element to it. But we did talk a lot about self-fulfilling prophecies and how superstition ties into the notion of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where when you tell yourself one thing is true for so long, even if maybe it's not, sometimes that's what will result, just because everything in your life has been working towards accommodating that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to know that like Zeb has a very satisfied life before the spider shows up. She likes her life. She's organized it around her needs. Mm-hmm. And she's also just a very creative and resourceful person. But yeah, I do think that part of the reason that things go the way they do is because there's something that she hasn't been willing to address. And that although she might on paper be satisfied with her life, I think that there's always something that everyone has, no matter who they are. There's something that you're maybe unwilling to confront or know that is true about yourself, and sometimes those things come forward because of strange circumstances. And so I think that is something that we all wanted to talk about when we were making this. Would you say so?
Yeah, I think for us, telling this story was just a really interesting way of exploring as Sophie said, self-fulfilling prophecies, which is just something that Sophie and I find really interesting and have had a lot of conversations about. And we also both love fables and things like that. So it's a really exciting way to explore that kind of a story.
Got you. All right. I mean, you wouldn't be wrong, Sophie. I do tend to over spiral in my own thoughts sometimes. But any answer would have sufficed. I was just throwing that there just to see what I get. But on a more fun, just over in general aspect, I know I didn't ask too much about Zeb Spider, but you kind of answered everything I wanted to know about it. From like just you guys meeting and going through the development of that. I do like to ask little fun snippets for people that come on board, because I know for the viewers that do end up watching some of the past videos of the 4for4 interview series, I always tend to go to a question that kind of seems like my scapegoat when I don't have enough questions to ask, but it's genuinely a question that I ask the creators that I bring on, because I want to know what they think. And that question is basically would be, what piece of advice would you guys give to the people pursuing not just stop motion but filmmaking, live action for you, Sophie, since you have your new film at VIFF, and your guys' experience in this. What would be one piece of advice, even if they're not like still debating of going into film school or even the college course?
Do you want me to go first? I'll go first. Yeah, my advice is that if you want to make a film, make it. Don't wait for whatever you feel like you need to wait for to make it. It won't be your last film. So if it's not perfect and you don't have as much money as you wish you did, it doesn't matter, because you're going to make mistakes and learn, and then you get to make your next film. Don't your first is your worst. Like let your first film be your worst film, and be really, really proud of that, because it's a huge accomplishment to even make a bad film. It's still a ton of work, and you are still going to learn a lot, and it is completely worth your time to make a film. And I would just say the other thing is to learn how to ask and receive help from people, because a lot of people genuinely want to help. And not only that, but allowing someone else to help gives great value to all parties if it's the right arrangement. If someone wants some experience, making a film, and you have that opportunity to give it to them, do it. You can do it by yourself, I guess, but it's not going to be as good, and certainly not as fun. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. How about you, Zoe?
I totally agree with everything Alicia said. And I would also say, listen, this is so obvious, but I think it's a really good reminder. Listen to your gut. Like, your instincts are telling you what your voice is. And it's so easy to try to make something that you think will fit into a box. It's easy to say, oh, I want my film to play at a big festival. So what's the formula for that? And the truth is that that's just not how it works. The only way to distinguish yourself is to make work and to listen to your own instincts about what makes it yours. And the more you do that, I mean, sometimes you make a mess. Like, I made like 10 short films before I finally made my feature film, and all of them were hot messes in their own right. And I'm so proud of them because I tried something. I followed my curiosity and I followed my instincts. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But in the end, I just remembered, like, it's not up to me to decide the value of this work in the world. It's up to me to continue making it and to find my voice in the process. And sometimes you just don't, unless you do it, you can't figure it out. So just know like what your own taste is, and you'll know that just because your heart and your guts tell you. And those are the choices that are the most important to make, is what makes you want to make a project. So that would be my advice.
That works. I 100% agree. In my year and a half, I guess, of just actually covering festivals aside from just reviewing them on my own personal time. You guys would be surprised, for the viewers listening, on what there's so many films that are made in so many types, reaching from animation, live action, stop motion, that you see. And of course they have the same fundamental building blocks, right, of making something, because you need structure in order to create something, but they all are in their own self, original, and they just go with what the creator wanted. And from the people that I've had on, that yeah, they spoke wholeheartedly that they loved the idea that they went with, and that they were happy that it got out. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. That's all I had for the questionnaire and stuff, and just to have you guys on. Thank you so much for coming. I don't know if there was like any questions that you might have asked before, or they might have been asked to you guys before coming on here. Hopefully everything was new. If it's not, I'm sorry. I mean, that's what happens when you're doing festival circuits. It gets redundant a little bit, press circuits. That's the secret that a lot of people don't realize. But yeah, do you guys, I know it's still, I mean, VIFF barely started. Is there any way people will know when to see the film if it comes to the public eye, or is it still just in its festival circuit?
Yeah, it's we just finished the film a couple months ago, so it's starting its festival life now, and we're excited for it to have a hometown premiere, just because there's been so much support from VIFF in the past, and also with the community who got to make it. So it's really exciting for us to be able to share it there. And we'll be having more festival news soon. I think usually with the NFB, what we do is a festival run, and then it'll be released online. So that's going to be the life of this film, and we're so excited for the world to see it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for the people that are at VIV or any other festival, definitely check it out. It is coming on, so today is the 29th. So whenever this releases, it should release by Friday, which is tomorrow. Today's Thursday. The festival run is up until October 9th, so make sure to get a ticket and head over to the showcasing of it. It's the premiere in its hometown, as Sophie said. But yeah, thank you again so much for coming on. Hope you guys have a wonderful festival run. And yeah, I mean, that's all I have for you guys, viewers, right now. Thank you for watching this 4for4, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.